I just was doing what I was doing the best that I could. It wasn't until I left corporate and started my own business and started more consciously using my intuition that I realized what I had been doing those years back in corporate. Now, there are people who navigate well today using their intuition in corporate. That just wasn't my experience. I was doing it, but I didn't know I was doing it. And one of the things I say to business owners today is that it's one thing to be mildly successful because you're moving through and doing your own thing. You're just doing what you do, right? You're just being you in your business. It's a whole nother thing to be wildly successful when you can be conscious and aware of your gifts and really use them consciously in your business. And that happened to have been my progression, was that it's kind of like, throwing I don't know, there's a practice of teaching babies to swim, which is just tossing them in a pool and letting them swim. And a lot of us do that when we start a business. We just do it, and we have to swim. We have to make it happen. I want to get business owners to really look at who they are, what their purpose is, and what they want. Those are the two main factors, who they are and what they want. Because once they hone that as the center of their business kind of universe, they can better discern and decide using their intuition what feels right, what feels aligned or not, and they can make decisions based on that. Now, there's a lot of trust involved with listening to your intuition, because sometimes our gut is telling us to do something and there's no practical reason for it. So how do we explain to others, right, what our decision is? Sometimes you can't. And it takes a real strong position in who you are and what you're all about to say, you know what? I don't know why I'm being told this or guided this way, but I'm listening. I'm going to make this decision even though I don't have, that practical piece or that pragmatic goal piece. And so that's how I have attuned my intuition over time. My intuition gets stronger and stronger. It's just like a muscle. Everyone has it, and you can strengthen it if you begin to utilize it. And the way that I teach my clients to utilize it is by those two factors that I mentioned earlier. One, embrace who you are and what your calling and your purpose is on this planet. Number two, you have to know what it is that you want so that you can make decisions that are aligned or not with those two foundational pieces.
All right, that's really great advice there, because it's because sometimes people might not associate business with following intuition, and they might think that you have to have that business background in order to succeed in business, but that's not always a case per se.
I don't believe it's always the case. And I'm not going to throw my practical out, in the trash can either. I'm going to use both of them. They're both tools that we can integrate and use. And yeah, I think many people think business is more practical, pragmatic, and numbers. But if you happen to be like us and you've got this belief system around the law of attraction, or what you think about, you bring about, or the power of positive thinking, and you bring that into your business, then you also know that you're going to be given opportunities that you could never have written on your goal or your milestone sheet, right? And you have to be able to recognize it when you see it as an opportunity and not just brush it off because it's not on your practical or pragmatic goal sheet. And the way you do that with decision making is that intuition, is to really know and own who you are, what you're all about, what you're here to do, and know what you're looking to do, so that you can, when faced with that unexpected opportunity, go, is this a bright, shiny object and distracting me? Or is this really aligned with my purpose and my calling? And you might choose this one and say, I'm going for it. And I have no idea why this came to me, but I'm trusting that intuition. Yep.
That's awesome. Now, I got to ask this question because, I mean, I know that you're introverts, and I am an introvert myself. So, but this really was interesting to hear because you mentioned that you do your appointments beforehand, whenever you're talking with your clients or prospective clients. But the fact that you even schedule an appointment with your own mother, that really was a little shocking to hear. So could you so could you explain to us why, even though it's your own mother, why do you continuously, you schedule an appointment with your mom, whenever you want to talk to her?
Oh, I love that. Yes. So you're referring to, I forget where I shared that, either in a Facebook Live or maybe it was my interview with Brian Kramer. I can't recall. But yeah, my mom is like, oh, why do I have to make an appointment with my own daughter? And the way that I operate is that if I create a container in my schedule for what it is that I want to do, then I will book around it and I will preserve that event to happen. I think that I see this in myself, but I also see it in creative thinkers who are really spirally in how they think. And they tend to go from thing to thing to thing, and they forget about some of the practical things, like, I don't know, brushing their teeth or paying bills or whatever, because we move through life in such an organic way. And so that's how I explained it to my mom. I said, look, mom, it's not necessarily because I'm an introvert per se that I schedule appointments with my mom or anyone else. It's really more around the fact that I do want it to happen and I want to ensure that it's going to happen. So I'm going to put it in my calendar that it's going to be happening so that I can book around it
Okay.
and preserve it to happen. Now, most introverts will say, now I don't know if you want to admit this or not, but if I get a call coming in my cell phone and it doesn't have a name attached to it, it's very unlikely that I'm gonna answer that
Yep.
call.
Yes.
Now, some
I understand.
right, so some people would say, well, that's poor business. Like, you're not famous enough to avoid phone calls. I actually saw somebody write that in a blog once. But quite honestly, in the day and age of robocalls and automated marketing calls, right? And also, as an introvert, I like to prepare for the conversations that I'm going to have. So if they do leave a message, then I know it's important enough that I need to call back, and it's actually a human. Um, but I don't prefer to have those spontaneous calls if I'm not ready for them, let's say. So, yeah, my poor mom.
Oh my goodness, that is really awesome. I'm understanding more now. Your
Yeah.
process of that. So
And the thing I'd like to
that's really awesome.
share too is that it's one small way or one small example that I can give to others listening and watching today, that it's okay for you to own who you are and what your personality is. There's nothing wrong with booking an appointment with a mom or not booking an appointment with your mom. There's nothing wrong with making spontaneous calls. I made several this week myself. I do make them. Um, the point is, know who you are and how you work best, and do whatever you need to set yourself up for success. See, I just rhymed again and I didn't mean to. Um, so it's to really own how you're naturally wired, because when you're building your activities around how you naturally are, then you're going to have more energy, more motivation, and more enthusiasm around what you're doing if you're honoring that. One of my clients is in Shanghai, and we're on complete opposite time, zone schedule. So when he's sleeping, I'm awake, and vice versa. And when we first started working together, I was trying to be awake enough at 8:30 in the morning to have a coaching session because he was in Shanghai at 8:30 at night. And I finally said to him after a few calls, I said, you know what? is there any way that we could start later? Because my brain, I just don't operate as well at 8:30 as I do at 9:30. And he goes, "Christine, I'm so glad you said something because I'm a night owl and I work better
Oh,
at
wow.
9:30 at night." And I was like doing a cheer because here I wanted to serve my client. I felt sheepish about saying I can't work that early in the morning. And then herein lies the benefit to him that he works better late at night as a night owl anyway. So so don't hesitate to really own who you are, and we get to voice right to others about what it is that we need or how we better operate, and that creates the conversation. If I had never said that to him, I would have been struggling every time we had a session to be up, awake, and able to serve him at 8:30 in the morning. And who needs struggle in our business? I sure don't.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Now, I gotta ask this question here. You work with solopreneurs, like you mentioned. Why do you think solopreneurs or anyone should start live streaming, especially now, like since we're doing this recording, over live streaming. And of course our audience is watching on Facebook Live and also in the Blue Jeans network community.
Yes, hello everybody in all those communities. I see the light shifting, so I'm just going to shift my chair a little bit. The first thing I would say is I don't think everybody needs to Facebook Live. I love it. I do it myself, as you well know, and I do it for reasons that include my audience is on Facebook, so they're there, and that's the first question you should ask with any marketing that you choose to do is where is your audience? Secondly, video relays 65% of what it is that you intend. Okay? If you're just doing newsletters, you're getting across 7% of what you intend. If you're making phone calls or you're doing audio podcasting, you're only getting across 30% of what you intend. So, video
Wow.
is a way to get across 65% of what you intend because you've got words, tone of voice, and facial expression as a part of video. So your message is much more clear. People can see, they have the visual cues and clues as well. And your message is much more powerful that way. Now, the Facebook Live appeals to certain audiences because much of the time it isn't scheduled. Now, there are people who do have a scheduled time, right, that they're going to show up every week, which I used to do, but I'm now doing more spontaneous Facebook Lives. So you want to think of your audience. Do they like regularity? Do they want to book you in their calendar to be there when you broadcast? Or do they kind of like seeing you pop on their feed at any given moment and share an insight or a tip or two? So if you do choose live because your audience is there and for all the reasons that I mentioned, you want to ask yourself that question too. Do you want to do it spontaneously or scheduled? And the other thing I like about Facebook Live or any video in terms of your marketing is that you can transcribe it. So now you have content for blogs, newsletters, or whatever. And with Facebook Live, now I'm new to the Blue Jeans network thing, so you'll have to tell me what's special about it. But I know Facebook Live, you can embed the video in your WordPress blog and maybe others as well. I'm not technically, an expert, but you can embed it there and you can use it as a newsletter as well. So it gets sent out along with the video to your, in your Facebook blog or a WordPress blog. So and it's dynamic, just like here we had no scheduled necessarily. I know you had some questions that you prepared, but it's been a very organic conversation. And that's a different experience of you as a business owner or anyone else because people like reality. I mean, think about the rise in reality shows over the past 5 or 10 years, right? People love being, the fly on the wall, so to speak. And so to have a spontaneous representation of who you are and talking with someone else, people get to know a lot more about you that way. So I think Facebook Lives are great for all those reasons.